So then we go to Detroit. No, and once again, we've been talking about this for a while. The big Legends of the Kobo Fan Fest that was in Detroit on October the 7th. And of course, as anyone who's been following or also was there that day knows, that there were a number of cancellations from the original lineup. Some obviously for a very valid reason. Bobby Heenan was originally scheduled to be there, which is one of the reasons I was looking forward to it for quite a while. But obviously that was pulled. And so at any rate, one of the makeup stars, I guess you might mention, was the guy who lives down the road or up the road, Santino Marella. And everybody knows that we have had a checkered past, he and I. But at the same time, when I saw that he was announced to take place, some of the other people that had departed the lineup, I figured, okay, we're going to a Legends Fan Fest. We're going to meet some fans. We're going to be in a giant area of hundreds of human beings. And all I have to do for everybody to have a pleasant day is ignore one of them. And all he has to do for everybody to have a pleasant day is ignore one of them. Guess which one of us was the one who acted inappropriately for it? No, here's the thing, and maybe I'm getting ahead because some of the younger folks might not know that about our checkered past. So I wanted to wrap it up real quick. I'm not going to relitigate the whole Boogeyman story. It'll take all goddamn day. But Santino's one laughed at Boogeyman on my TV. I slapped Santino and kicked him out of the building back in 2005 in OVW. And at that point, there was a number of things Santino could have done with it. Let's just establish character for reference here. There was a number of things he could have done with it. He could have said, I don't want to be around this fucking guy in this fucking OVW, and he could have gone home. Or he could have come back the next week and said, like a wrestling school stooge basically would when you've been 2 weeks in an amateur class, I'm sorry, that I fucked up. And because it was a week later, I would have not only probably accepted that, but also apologized too, because I would have been cooled off and I was mad at the office, not him. And then there was the thought that he could come back and ask me to apologize, which I probably would have, because who the fuck was he? And I was mad at the office. Or he could have come back and punched me in the fucking face if it was that goddamn important to him. But instead, he chose to call the office in Stamford and whine about how I was treating it. He was not a WWE contract talent. I think that's where some people get this wrong. He was a guy that had come in to go to OVW's beginner's class, and he'd been there for 2 fucking weeks. It was an appropriate time and an opportune time politically, because John Laurinaitis was driving me crazy, and the whole WWE developmental program was driving me crazy in OVW. And they were looking for a way to get rid of me and get me out of the picture so that they could take control of the booking, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an opportune moment politically for him to give them a reason to separate from me. And as a thank you, they gave him a job. Personal feelings aside, Brian Last, that guy was in wrestling school for 2 fucking weeks, and the biggest promotion in the world is going to give him a job and put him on contract. For any other reason, yes or no?
No.
Okay.
No, of course not.
Now, he went on to have a long and illustrious career because he became the kind of guy that the comedy writers like to amuse each other by writing for. And they come up with a bunch of cute shit for him to do, like dress in women's clothes, make him the butt of the jokes, and he's goddamn goof because it amuses themselves. And that is the entertainment segments in the middle of the guys actually fucking trying that run off the wrestling fans. But the writers love it. So he got a lot of time. So that was what happened. And in effect, he did me a favor in the long run because I was going to have a stroke or a heart attack. And things were already happening and something else was going to happen. So he did me a favor in the long run, but he didn't intend to do it. He was narking me to get a job. Now, I did slap the shit out of him in front of all the people in the locker room and scream at him and kick him out. So that was humiliating. But he got a job out of it where he went on to make a decent amount of money. And it cost me about $100,000 because at that point I hated wrestling so bad and was so burnt that I just took a fucking year off and said, fuck it, before I dropped dead of a stroke. So if he'd have sued me for slapping him, and by the time I hired a lawyer, paid a settlement and everything, you're almost 100 anyway. So instead, he didn't sue me, so I got to just take a year vacation. But it was $100,000. So I think he's, I've got a little credit on him in the fucking column. That's why I've felt the ability to tell the Santino Marella boogeyman story, which has become one of the more popular stories of my live events. I think you'll agree.
Yeah.
It's most asked. It's not most asked for, but it's often asked for. So I felt the liberty to be able to tell that story, but I don't think browbeat Santino Marella or whatever the fuck his name is. I don't believe I browbeat him endlessly on the program. We're not beating a dead horse here because we usually don't refer to him unless it was the program several months ago where he had put up a shoot interview, right?
Right. That was the last time he was brought up on the show.
Yeah, because somebody sent it to me and I responded telling people where he was full of shit, which was a major percentage of it. But anyway, after expressing my feelings, we've moved on from that. So
what did he claim at the time? He claimed that after he got his neck injury was so severe he couldn't wrestle again, you somehow got his phone number and left him a message laughing at him.
Okay. And here again, he said this with such conviction that I called him up and fucking gave him down the road on the fucking phone about, now your neck, you can't work, whatever the fuck, I don't know. But he said it with such conviction that I started thinking, did I do that? I have no memory of this. And then I thought, could I have been at a fan fest, right? And somebody said, I got Santino Marella on the fucking phone here. And I've done that. And I don't remember that either, even if I was in a grumpy mood, whether I thought it might be really Santino Marella or not. I don't remember doing it. And then you and I both started thinking, this fucking guy, because I've heard that he is slow to pick up on shit. Now, I'm not saying he's outright stupid. He might be or might not be stupid. I don't know because I don't know him, as we will cover here. I've never spoken to him except these times. But he's not with it. He's not, as Frank Higgy would say, not smart to the wrestling business or life in general. He doesn't pick up what's going on around him. I think that's what got us both in this problem back then. But we started thinking, could somebody, because I've never spoken to him on the phone, and the only time that we had ever spoken at that point was when I was screaming at him and slapping him in the face. Could somebody have fucking got him on the phone and wound him up? Is Brian Zane? Is Brian Zane the culprit? My illegitimate son out there that fucking, could he have called him up and wound him up? I don't know with this fucking guy, right? But anyway, so I knew he was going to fucking be there. And I figured, it's not that hard in this giant airplane hangar size space to ignore one human being out of hundreds. But apparently I was wrong. I got there because I got there early because I met a bunch of the old Kobo guys, Supermouth Dave Drayson, the noted manager, Gary Kamensack, Gary Mancuso, Brian Buchanan with Arena Publishing, the photographers, the guys that did Body Press years ago, the core Detroit wrestling fans. Greg Oliver's there from Slam Wrestling, and Leonard Brand was the Irish Mickey Doyle. I met the elbow drop guy too.
No, get out of here.
Yes, I did. He came up and introduced himself to me. I know why he's still alive. He's 5'4" and he's 140 pounds. and that's
wow.
I'm not knocking him. He's a very polite young man, and he realizes that he will not be doing that again. And he was a very nice young man. But if he'd been 214 pounds, he'd be in a fucking wheelchair right now.
How did he actually introduce himself to you?
He said, "I'm the elbow drop guy." Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting off the goddamn beam, but I got there early and hung out with those guys. I was there about 10 or 10:30. As usual, I was the first name star to set up my location and be there to greet everyone. And I had a pretty busy time. I don't know about everybody else, but I had a pretty busy time from the time they let the VIPs in on through the afternoon. And I was enjoying hanging out with the Garys and Dave and Brian at my table in between meeting fans. And I knew, once again, because I saw him once, that Marella is like 3 tables down to my left. And he had a couple people, I think, that were with him he was chatting with. And I felt no need to speak to him. And he felt no need to speak to me for, I don't know how long he was there because I was busy. But I get about 4:15, I had heard that the food court in this place, because the Kobo, it's a giant convention center now. It's not like the old arena. The arena was refitted for other things, but it's a giant convention center complex. It's a huge convention room. You go out on this concourse, several levels. There's a food court club sandwiches to die for is the story that I'm getting. And I'm fucking hungry. So I said, guys, if you'll watch my table for a minute, I'm going to go try to find me one of them club sandwiches. So as I go out through the front door, the same door guards had been there all day. And you know, one of them was a fan especially. So we'd been joking back and forth. And I turn to the right and I'm going to go until I see the signs for the food court, right? Anyway, I go about 20 fucking feet and here comes Santino Marella. And obviously I know what he looks like, right? But as he comes up, he's got his hand stuck out to shake my hand, and he's got, maybe what passes for a smile on his face. I don't know. And at that point, I'm like, what? I have no interest in shaking this guy's hand because it's not like I made a secret of what I thought of him. And I don't know why he'd want to shake my hand because it's not like I make a secret of what I thought of him. I thought we could be professional in the public place. Maybe he's going to apologize to me. I don't have any idea, but I'd rather just not because you know how I get when people start ticking me off. But I didn't want to be the headline. I figured, the horrible headlines. Jim Cornette snubs Santino Marella's offer of a handshake. I'll look like the heel. So I shake his hand. And he introduces himself. And by the way, he introduced himself under his real name. What is it? Adam Carolla?
I don't know what his name is, actually.
Anthony Corelli. But so he says, Anthony, I said, I know who you are, Santino. I said, and here's exactly what I said. And I was not cussing him. And I was not actually talking pretty much any other way than I am right now. It was not a loud conversation. At first, I said, Santino, I've gone back and forth on you because in a way you did me a favor because you were the straw that broke the camel's back that got me away from the WWF before I had a stroke or a heart attack and died. And I would not have done it myself because I didn't want to leave Danny Davis, my best friend and business partner, hanging in that situation, but I was miserable. So you did me a favor. But you didn't mean to do me a favor. You were a jabroni in the beginner's class calling the office to get heat on me, stooging to get a spot. So you didn't mean to do me a favor, so I can't give you credit for it. So we don't have anything to talk about. I shook your hand, we're done. I start to go. And he said, but, and does he really have that accent?
I don't know. I mean, he's Canadian, right? I mean, he's not from Italy.
I don't know. He sounded like a Bernard or something. I don't know. You cocksucker, But he said, but I'd only been there 3 weeks. He stops me. I'm like, if you've been watching wrestling for 3 weeks, you knew what the fuck was going on. He knew what the fuck was going on. He's a smug little prick. But I've just told him that he's burying the lead here. I've just explained to him that he stooged on me to the office and got me fired from a very highly paid job. And so therefore I have nothing to speak to him about and good day. And he's going to relitigate the goddamn boogeyman thing because he didn't run for it.
What year was it? Was it 2005?
Yeah, okay. 2000. He wants to make sure that he knows that I know that it was not his fault that he didn't run from the boogeyman. This is the most important thing to him right now. I said, if you've been there 3 weeks, if you watched wrestling, you knew what the fuck. You were just sitting there, smug. So here's the thing. You called the office and stooged on me, and you got a job being a joke comedy job guy. And I don't have anything to talk to you about. And I try to go again. And what was it he said? He said something else, but then he said, and I'll never forget these words, Brian, as long as I live, that a person who claims to be a professional wrestler, even in this day and age, would say this to somebody else in the business. He said, but my employer gave me a role to play. Like he was in fucking actors fucking theater. He didn't say, the booker gave me a shitty gimmick. Or the office wanted me to act like a goof. He said, but my employer gave me a role to play. He sounded like Inspector Clouseau, right? And this just offended me on the fucking surface of the whole thing. And I'm starting to get mad that he's putting me in a position of being the bad Jim, because I'm getting fucking fed up more that I'm looking at this fucking guy, right? And I'm trying to walk away from him. And I said, look, When he said, you roll to play or whatever, and he said something like, respecting him or whatever. Did I disrespect? The point is, I said, I never respected you. I said, you were a joke, and I've already told you, and I'm done. And as soon as I said the last time, I start to go, and he gets up in my face, nose to nose, and says, well, we can settle this right here. And now I'm realizing this fucking guy is still trying to get me to hit him first. He could have ignored me, or he could have come up and shook my hand. And when I said, okay, I shook your hand, we don't have anything to talk about, he could let me walk away from him. Or he could let me walk away from him the next time when I told him a little bit more about what I thought about him. Because what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say something different to his face than I have said in public when he wasn't around? Or did he think that's what I was going to do? Because I didn't do that. As apparently the guy's goddamn video that I didn't know somebody was shooting proclaims, when I was in his face calling him a joke and a fucking job guy, or whatever the fuck I was saying at that fucking point in time, when he wouldn't let me fucking walk away from him. So when he gets in my face, says, we can settle this right here, I realize he ain't gonna fucking he ain't gonna hit me, but he wants me to hit him so that Mr. Jiu-Jitsu Jackoff can fucking stretch me with all of my bad body parts, and maybe allegedly. And I'll admit, yes, he could beat me up. But, here's the fucking thing about it, Brian. Unless he could do the goddamn James Bond villain thing where he just puts 2 fingers on the back of my neck and his thumb on my chin and snap and I drop like the dirty clothes, he wasn't going to fucking murder me right there before somebody did anything about it. And I've had people bigger than him hit me harder than he probably can. But what the problem was he didn't have the guts to do that if this whole thing had him so bent out of fucking shape. He didn't have the guts to, and if he didn't want the answer, he shouldn't have asked the question of what I thought of him if he come up and got in my face. But yet he's going to try to fucking get in my way so that he knows that eventually I will snap. And I can hit him so he can either beat me up or sue me or whatever fuck. But one way or the other, when he said we can settle this right here and fucking chest bumped me out of walking past him, I realized I'm not going to go to jail in Detroit, because that is the one thing that I'm scared of. So we're out in the goddamn concourse, and I even tried to tell him, I said, we ain't got to settle shit, motherfucker. I said, there's witnesses around here. We're here to work, right? When I try to walk past him. And he won't. So all right. In this concourse, there was the people guarding the door down the way, and they couldn't necessarily see us. I don't even know from there. Maybe they could. And there's some people walking by, but there's 3 different events. There's some kind of video game goddamn thing in town. So all these people didn't know who we were necessarily. So they weren't watching real fucking close. And I want to make sure if somebody was going to hit somebody first, if somebody's going to jail, it wasn't going to be me. So I turned to the people, hey, witnesses. This guy's trying to start a fight with me, and he won't let me walk off from him. And once we had some people paying attention, I said, now, motherfucker, I ain't got a goddamn thing to say to you. And I ain't going to hit you first because I ain't going to jail. But if you hear, so just let me fucking go. By then, here comes some people. And get the first one on the scene is goddamn I shouldn't say goddamn, but I'm sure she was a nice woman, but it was a female security guard who was 5'1". I was flat-footed. I'm looking straight over her as she's trying to get in between us. But at that point, I'm vibrating. And I should explain, do you know vibrating? My code word was Stacy.
I don't.
It's not a safe word, it's a code word. When I'm vibrating, I am losing my sanity. I've told everybody I've got an anger management problem, and when I'm vibrating, that means that I'm fixing to hire a lawyer, go to jail, cause some kind of trouble, say some shit, or do some shit, even to my own property that I should not fucking do. I've come to recognize over my life this feeling. It's called vibrating. And if it happens, I tell her I'm vibrating. That means we got to fucking go now from wherever we are. If it's in a store, we leave the fucking shopping cart. If it's a goddamn public place, we get out of it. I need to get away from fucking people. I'm going to do something that I'm later on going to be fucking sorry about financially or otherwise. I'm not in control of myself. And I'm fucking vibrating at this motherfucker. because now I'm sitting, everybody was having a good time, but now because this little sawed off fucking prick who was a goddamn joke and an embarrassment to my profession had to make me tell him to his face that he was a joke and an embarrassment to my profession. And he can't consider himself ahead on the fucking roster, that he got a big time money making job because people in that spot, even if you are the butt of the joke on the popular show, make a lot of money. And so he should send me a Christmas card every fucking year, but he's got to press this fucking issue. He's got to be a smug little prick like he always has been. And so now I'm done with the whole goddamn thing. But now by this time, since I'm screaming, fuck you, you little fucking prick, and he's fucking screaming at me, more people have arrived quickly. And there's this goddamn mass chaos, and I'm getting fucking madder because now I'm like, goddamn, now I got to fucking go. And then they're leading him off. And then the security guard was like, yeah, you have to leave. And that's what I'm going to fucking do. Then the goddamn people from the door come over telling those guards, no, wait a minute. The other guy was the one who fucking started it. He should fucking go. Well, then they're going after him. Well, then some woman ends up, I told them, I said, I'm going in there to get my shit and I'm out of here. But they said, you can't go back in there in that room with him. I said, fuck you, my shit's in there, right? So they're going to come with me. Fine. But then we got clogged in the goddamn door because some other woman is yelling at the security and I don't even know whose side she's on. And now I'm trapped in this glob of about 30 people trying to go in the double doors of the convention room. So I'm vibrating, which is the condition that I'm in when I've lost my mind. And I do all this shit that I get in trouble for. And I am trapped without being able to move one way or the other, even with the security guards, because we're all stuck in this closed space in the middle of 30 people, which is my personal Dante's 7th level of hell, right? So I fucking finally bust loose from this goddamn human cholesterol, and I'm running up to the table. And I'm telling fucking... Drayson was there, I believe, yes, and Mancuso and Kamensak. I said, guys, load it up. Got to go. And we start throwing shit in boxes. And here comes somebody else, and I say, because then they've taken Marella back to his fucking table on the other side of Al Snow. I said, fucking, I'm not going to be in the same building with this fucking guy. And I told Drayson to tell Malcolm Monroe, who I had not yet seen that day. I don't know why he was hiding. I have no clue. But I had not seen him that day. I told him to tell Malcolm Monroe, the promoter, to keep my money, that I was done. It may have been worded a little more harshly than that. But I said, guys, load it. And I had my dolly there. I'm like, load it up. We got to get out of here. Well, then here comes the goddamn security people to say, sir, you have to leave. yeah, no shit. Get out of my way. But then they're going over to talk to him. Then here comes Drayson. Oh, no, then here comes a real cop. There was one real cop, and he was the only one with any sense. He comes over. He says, come here. He says, what happened? I said, this fucking guy, blah, blah, blah. He said, do you want me to stay here? I said, yes. Keep people away from me so I can pack this shit up and go. So now I've got a cop guarding me so that the people trying to kick me out won't interfere from me leaving. And I'm fucking vibrating again. Then we get the shit and off we go, right? And we're wheeling the shit out. We get in the elevator. We get up to the top because we're parked on the roof. The Kobo roof is a giant parking structure or whatever. So as we're throwing the shit in the back of my truck and I'm apologizing to guys that I can't fucking hang out, blah, 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 what we were going to do because these fucking, I'm insane at this point. My pocket rings because Mancuso and Kamensak came with me, and Leonard Brand, I think, was there. But Drayson had stayed down there. Drayson's calling me. Now he's next to Malcolm Monroe's guy. Malcolm Monroe wants to know if they kick Marella out, will I come back? I'm like, that horse has left the barn. I have to go and be away from people. So then they apparently went to fucking, the security got together. And they fucking went to Marella and fucking kicked him out too. So basically the stories where either I tried to apologize to him or he tried to apologize to me or I ran away from him or we were both ejected. Well, technically true. We were both ejected, but I could have been out quicker if security had stopped interrupting my leaving to tell me to leave. And, but basically that's the story. Now, Like I said, I didn't take my money because I didn't fulfill my commitment. I sincerely hope that he didn't take his because, for one thing, he wasn't worth anything. But for another thing, he didn't stay and fulfill his commitment either because he got his ass booted because he's a fucking prick. So if everybody wants the story, that's the story. And if you think he was wrong, that's fine. If you think I was wrong, I really don't give two flying fucks because there's no law on the books that says that I have to like this guy. And there's no law that says that he has to like me. The only law is that we can't get in a big fucking hey rube in a goddamn public place. And that's the one law that I was trying to follow. But if you don't want the answer, motherfucker, don't ask the question. I wasn't going to stand there and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was just working or it's my podcast or whatever. I told him without cussing him that he did something for me, but he didn't mean to, and he got something out of it. And we didn't have nothing to talk about. He didn't want to leave it go. I wasn't going to say anything different to him than I've said about him. So if he wasn't just going to come up and pop me, it was a fruitless exercise. And you jujitsu jack off, you had the opportunity to blindly fucking pop me while I stood in your face and told you you were a joke. You didn't do it, and I wasn't interested in doing it. Because I'm 56 years old with bad body parts, and I can't whip you because, goddamn, to be honest, I'm not mad at you enough, motherfucker, to want to whip you in public and go to jail. You're not Vince Russo. You're not that important to me. So, at any rate, and maybe, I don't know, Brian, maybe the problem is it strikes a nerve because deep down, he wanted to be the badass MMA wrestler fighter guy. But he turned into a cross-dresser and the fucking butt of the joke, and it eats at him. And I'm the one that brings it up. Because if it wasn't for me, he would have never been involved in a high level in professional wrestling, and that eats him up. Am I being too psychological here?
No, well, I thought about it. I'm like, what is this guy trying to achieve here? Because I can understand being mad at you. And look, you've been pretty honest about this whole thing. I mean, you just said it here, in 2005, 2 weeks later or a week later, if he had come up to me and apologized, here are the different scenarios that would happen. And more than likely, I would have said I was sorry too, because it wasn't about him. It was a bigger thing. And unfortunately, he was stuck in the middle. And, I've heard you say, in fact, the last time this all came up, this is on YouTube now. It's on tinyurl.com/cornyyoutube. The last time it came up, you said, I probably shouldn't have slapped. I mean, you've been very honest about this whole thing. You've never been like, I'm glad I did it. Fuck that guy. Like, it was never about that. Like, I've never had any.
I can't hate this guy because I've never had any interaction with him. But besides the fact that once again, I launched someone's wrestling career, and it couldn't be a Steve Austin or an Arn Anderson or a Great Worker or a Ricky Steamboat. It has to be goddamn, but I'm offended by the flavor of him. The fact that he is the epitome of a big league, fucking major league job guy, and just embarrassing to silliness. And it's just what I don't like. So for a variety of reasons, I don't like this fucking guy, and I don't need to like him. And I said the same thing to his fucking face as I said publicly, but it was not the venue to do that, and he forced it. And so I had to say it. Well, what else was I supposed to hit him first? He won't let me get out of it. He won't hit me.
Well, that's the thing. But, what was he trying to achieve there?
I don't know.
Because if I don't like someone and I'm determined to fight them, I'm going to fight them. I'm not saying I want to do that, but I mean, I've been in that scenario where I really want to punch this guy in the face. You know what? I think I'm just going to do it. But this was more of, he had something he was trying to prove to himself, and then he just couldn't figure out what to do next. And, look, I can understand him having a loss of pride because of that incident and it being a bewildering incident to a wrestling school trainee. I don't blame him for that.
He had multi-$100,000 years in the wrestling business to salve his wounded pride.
He made several $100,000 at least between salary and merchandise and royalties for several years that he wouldn't have made more than likely otherwise. And that's all because he called the office and said, this employee of yours hit me. And they more than likely said, all right, we want to make sure this guy doesn't sue us. Because
exactly.
Yeah, so let's give him a job and let's hook him up for the next few years, even though, with all due, again, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know the fucking guy, but he couldn't work. Eventually he found his gimmick of being the joke guy, but they originally pushed him as a serious worker, and that didn't work because he wasn't good. That was all because of the incident in OVW, which wasn't about him. He was incidental. He was, he caught.
He was on the periphery. Periphery is a good word,
right,
of things.
But I mean, him going up to you there, and I know when you went down to Florida for WrestleMania and you did the What Culture show, you don't like Joey Ryan. You've been very vocal about your thoughts about Joey Ryan. You shook his hand when you were up next to him. You did the right thing. You were professional.
Yes, I did, because I was accepting these people's money to be in their locker room and do a job for them. So he was in the locker room and I was standing there. So I shook his hand, said, "Hello, Joey." He did not speak to me, but he did shake my hand. And I'd also, to be quite honest, in the interest of full disclosure, I'd told the booker that I was not going to, as an announcer, call the dick spot. So if the dick spot was going to happen, I would be taking a phone call in the back for that match. And he didn't like the dick spot either and told him not to do it. And that was the interaction we had with Joey. But I didn't fucking go up and litigate to him our goddamn issues of where I thought he was wrong or he thought I was wrong, or force a conversation. If he said to me, "I don't have anything to say to you," because that actually, besides not speaking to me at all, that's the best thing he could have said was to me was, "I don't have anything to say to you," because then my conscience would have been clear to not talk to him. So he handled it perfectly. This fucking guy wants a goddamn fucking sit down powwow. It's not like Tully Blanchard, as we've told a story, slapped me one time. And we, after initial tension, have been once again cordial to this day. Bill Dundee, when he was the booker in Mid-South Wrestling, slapped me in a locker room in Lafayette, Louisiana one night. For something wasn't even my fault. We were all stressed 4,000 miles a week in the car, and all these fights and riots and matches, and he and Dennis and Bobby and I and Bud, everybody had known each other for years from Tennessee, and he was ranting in a locker room one night and snapped at me and in front of the boys, and I bowed up and said, "Don't talk to me like that, Bill," and pow, and goddamn, whoa. And then he fucking walked out of the goddamn locker room and went and fucking composed himself. And it didn't get over with the boys because he was kind of, I was the fucking mascot at that point. But did I fucking call Bill Watts and go, "Your booker fucking slapped me. I'm so hurt. I'm gonna sue Human Resources"? No, besides the fact I was the main event heel manager, but he was fucking booker. He was more important. I was lucky to be there in that spot with my experience level, and we were fucking tense for a couple of days, and then over a period of time it's been forgotten because I respected him as a great wrestler and a great booker and a guy that was making me money, and he respected me as a talent that was making him look better as a booker, and we could move on past that. There is nothing about this fucking guy that I can look at in a serious fashion or respect in any way as far as what his contributions to not only the wrestling business, but my personal life. So therefore, I referred my previous statement. Is there a law? I got to like this fucking guy.
No. And, again, with the Joey Ryan thing, you were paid to be there. You weren't, and it seems like Joey Ryan wasn't either. You guys weren't going to disrupt the show in the locker room for this. And with him, he didn't give a shit. And,
Well, hold on. I'm just starting to think. I've just said earlier, he's not real bright or as quick on the uptake, as my mom used to say. Do you think he was just going to think that, he was just going to come and he was going to change my mind with whatever he had to say about my thoughts on him, and we were going to leave pals?
Well, that's the thing. If he had gone up to you and said, "Look, Jim, I've heard what you've said about me, and I know you've heard what I've said about you."
Well, I didn't give him a chance to talk. Now, okay. I will admit that. Okay. When we shook hands, I said, "Santino, I've gone back and forth on you." That was my statement to him. There was not going to be a conversation. I've gone back and forth on you. You did me a favor, but you weren't trying to, so we don't have nothing to talk about. That was going to be our interaction if he'd have let it be.
See, he wouldn't let you go, but he also wouldn't do anything, and I don't know what he was thinking. Only he knows what he was thinking. But, considering everything that went down this year with the restraining order, my thought was he was trying to entrap you. That was my first thought when I saw the video and I heard about what happened. Because originally when the reports came out, it was and this is funny, it was Jim Cornette tried to attack Santino and has been kicked out of the Kobo. I'm like, what? And then the story started coming out that, no, he didn't try to attack Santino. That's ridiculous. But he wasn't doing anything. I think he wanted you to do something. Look, this is a guy who got a job because he called the office. Who knows what he said?
Well, now he needs a job. I guess those gyms are expensive. I mean, you know what he should have taken? Here's another fucking uncircumcised prick and pickle liquor that I'd like to just mention. Joe Cronin. Remember, we talked to him once because he was a Star Maker Bolin had him doing his show for a little while, and Bolin fired him because he was such an annoying fuck. Joe, if you're listening, you stupid fuck. This fucking idiot gets on Twitter, and I have to explain, he looks like one of those guys from Long Island that wants to be a white rapper, but he's 30-something years old, lives in his parents' basement with the droopy cap and the whatever, but he thinks he's Howard Stern, and he's got a cool way of talking in the microphone, and he's a shock jock or whatever, and somehow or another he accumulates followers on Twitter's instead of actual people. But anyway, he tweets us, hey, if whatever his fucking Twitter thing is, and Jim Cornette, if you want to come on my show and talk about this, I'll pay big dollar signs. Like, I'll make it rain. You fucking moron. Like, if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it on a real show like mine that people listen to instead of your fucking playtime in your fucking basement. But then he would get hot when we wouldn't answer him. Even fucking Morella's not hard up enough for money to answer him, right? And then it would get increasingly more desperate. What's the matter? You don't want dollar signs all the way across. This dollar signs doesn't sound good to you? Like, please, I'll blow you finally. I'll blow you if you'll come on my show. I'll swallow every drop. And he's fucking pathetic. So please, nobody listen to anything involving a guy named Joe Cronin because it's just so fucking sad for a human.
What the fuck is that? I've never heard of that. Of a podcast that's offering to pay people to come on the show?
Well, because he knew people were interested in it. That's the thing. That's probably what Marella thought. People are interested in Cornette because he was sitting there watching me have the fucking line all day while he's over there twiddling his fucking kibbles and bits. So he probably, hey, people are fucking interested in him. Maybe somebody'd notice I was around again. If every 12 years I can get this motherfucker to pop me in the mouth and somehow get a payoff out of it. This time he could sue me. He could probably sue me and get more money than he could from a wrestling company these days. So fuck him.
What's he doing at a Legends of the Kobo event?
All the stars canceled and he lives down the road. He was available. That's what I'm saying to you.
You realize there's a chance, because the ICP were originally booked on this as well, there's a chance you could have been in there with clowns to the left of you and jokers to the right.
And here I am, stuck in the middle with fucking Supermouth Dave Drayson. Good fucking God. All right, anyway, before we wind up on this section, am I a bad person for not having to put up with people that I don't like in my life?
No. That's all right. I'm the same way. I agree with that philosophy.
And once again, it was, the divide was because I'm sitting in the hotel room, and I got to tell you, boy, I was so fucking pissed. I get back to the hotel, and I was out at the airport, right? So I called the Merriman Street Grill, and they delivered to my hotel, and I had a half-pound cheeseburger with bacon and extra cheese. I had a goddamn Philly cheesesteak sandwich. I had the fucking sirloin Cajun beef tips, fries, cheesecake. It's all spread out on the bed. I'm going to kill myself, right? Because that right there kept me from snapping violently on the first person that I saw again. I was so fucking angry. That's why I have to go back to the cocoon and until I stop vibrating. And then I'm sane again. And then, then I can go on about my life.
I spoke to you during this period of time, and I just want to say for the record, you didn't know there was a video of it at that point. I had told you, but you described the events for me, and everything you said matched up to what I saw in the video. So I just think that's important to say.
Well, thank you for that endorsement that nobody will fucking believe anyway, because you're my goddamn co-host, but I appreciate because it was true.
To be honest, I tell you when I think you're wrong about something. Kenny Omega has some good matches.
Oh, all right. Yeah, Jesus.